Critical thinking is important. It helps us gather information, evaluate evidence, make decisions, and be better digital citizens. Now, there are already great videos about critical thinking, like the one from TED-Ed. I want to talk about factors that influence critical thinking. There are many, but I'm only going to talk about 5 of them today. Now, I've chosen these for 2 reasons. First, they're psychological influences. They're not specific to an age, a culture, a place, or a level of education. They affect everyone. Second, these effects are enhanced by the digital world of communication. The digital world gives us more access to media, more access to information, more access to social networks, and so our interconnected social digital world makes these factors stronger. Today, we're going to look at 5 factors that influence critical thinking. False balance. False balance occurs when we present 2 perspectives without presenting the context or where the strength of the evidence lies. Take the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine as an example. If I say some people think the MMRV causes autism while others disagree, where do you think the balance is? Is it 50-50, 60-40, 90-10? This is an example of false balance, or balance of quantity, because we don't have any information context to weigh the 2. Now, reporting is often difficult and time-consuming. PBS Idea Channel has an excellent video about fake news here. But sometimes reporters are under pressure and may add several perspectives to try and show some of the depth or complexity of an issue. This is balance of quantity. Just because there are different perspectives doesn't mean each perspective is equal, but we unconsciously consider them to be more or less equal if they are both presented at the same time without context. If I describe the MMRV perspectives in the context of their evidence, a balance of quality, not of quantity, then the picture becomes very different. In 1998, a study by Alan Wakefield of 12 children reported a link between MMRV and autism. This study was later retracted because of problems with selection bias. In 2000, a second study of 25 children claimed to have evidence of a link, but was also found to have problems with selection bias. In March of 1998, 37 experts across several medical and scientific fields evaluated Wakefield's study and found no credible link between autism and MMRV. Over the next 12 years, studies of more than 500 children in the UK found no link. Similar large-scale, long-term studies in the US and Australia found no link either. So now, what do you think the balance is? False balance increases the perception of uncertainty and may create the appearance of division or doubt where little or none may exist. The search engine manipulation effect tells us that we remember and give more attention to the search results that appear closer to the top of a search result. In a study of approximately 300 million search result clicks, 91.5% of clicks were on the first page, and 50.1% were on the first 2 results alone. Psychologically, this is called the primacy effect, and it's well known to advertisers. In 2010, an estimated $20 billion were spent on search engine optimization. By 2020, that amount is expected to grow to almost $80 billion. This is important because it affects not only how we research, but how we shop and how we vote. I live in Alberta, and I tried searching Alberta election. Just looking at the headlines, only one political party was mentioned in the first page of search results. The primacy effect tells me that I'm more likely to remember that party. The search engine manipulation effect also begins to show us how these effects become complex. There's a feedback loop. The more often a link is followed, the higher it's promoted in the search result, which makes it more likely to be followed. This is an important note, as such manipulations are easy to mask. Most people are not aware of manipulations, and a study in 2015 found that awareness of manipulation appeared to enhance the effect rather than nullify it. For a test, try going through your Twitter feed and see where sponsored tweets are being posted. Social influence is a well-known psychological phenomenon, and Crash Course has an excellent video describing it. In brief, our behaviors are influenced by the behaviors, opinions, and expectations of the people in our social groups. For example, I have an opinion about Justin Bieber's music. I've probably heard his music, but I can't name any of his songs. I also can't speak to any of the qualities that might make him a good or a bad artist. My opinion has been shaped by the social influences of the people I hang out with. We can often find this effect in things like number of 5-star reviews or number of times a video has been watched. We often measure the number of retweets or followers. This kind of information implies that something is good, but it doesn't directly speak to the quality of it. Social influence isn't inherently bad, and it can sometimes be beneficial. It can, however, influence our critical thinking when it's opaque and indirect. Direct social influence happens when we try to convince or persuade someone. We use this all the time. Indirect social influence happens when we see the decisions that others are making, and it then influences our decisions, and it can be pretty strong. The Ash conformity experiment showed that nearly a third of participants were willing to give an answer they knew to be wrong in order to mesh with the perceived expectations of the group. This gets serious when conforming around negative actions. If my group of friends is bullying someone, social influence says I'm more likely to start bullying too. Electronic word of mouth is a specific form of social influence that appears when we're buying something online. It's an important example effect to help understand how digital communications and social networking complicate critical thinking. Recently, I bought an exercise bench online. I relied on electronic word of mouth in the form of online reviews to help me decide. But how do I weigh those reviews? Are a large number of positive reviews actually better? Who are the people reviewing it? What's their expertise? A 2016 study noted that argument strength, source credibility, and confirmations with prior beliefs are significantly influenced by word of mouth. Digital communications means that strangers can leave reviews at any time, often anonymously. Sites often have mechanisms to promote helpful reviews, but this introduces both the search engine manipulation effect and the possibility of false balance. The more people like a review, the more it gets promoted, and those promoting the review don't necessarily have the full context of the review that they're promoting. The electronic word-of-mouth effect can make shopping online daunting. People with less topic knowledge are more strongly influenced. Even if we are comfortable shopping online, one study notes that people more familiar with review forums are more strongly influenced by those forums as well. Even worse, people with high topic knowledge tend to ignore these forums if the opinions of the forums disagree with their previously held beliefs. Critical thinking relies on reasoning, and Veritasium has an excellent video on the science of thinking here. Reasoning can be especially difficult when the effects can't be seen, can't be directly interacted with, and have properties that are inconsistent or counterintuitive to common sense, i.e. first-hand effects. Take chemistry of water, for example. Water is made of molecules, tiny particles that I can't see, which are made of atoms that I can't see either. I can't pick up a water molecule individually, and they can't be directly interacted with one at a time. There's a lot of space between these particles, but they don't collapse together like grains of sand. The water will fall to Earth because of gravity, but the atoms of the molecules don't fall. They kind of stick together, but not like a glue. Non-first-hand effects often limit our ability to fully describe or justify what is happening. Difficult or complex arguments might be rejected because they're not common sense enough. The non-first-hand evidence effect often comes from difficulties in understanding the process of science as opposed to the products of science, i.e. just the results. When people say it's just a theory or studies have shown, how can we critically analyze the merits of those kinds of justifications? Now, John Oliver has an excellent video on the difficulties of reporting science studies here. The non-first-hand effect notices that difficult situations we tend to give less evidence and more deference. Deference is when we defer to some other form of expertise. This is a key point, and this is where we can start to turn things around. The non-first-hand evidence effect describes two dominant kinds of justification: evidential and deferential. Evidential reasoning includes observable properties, causal effects, and historical record. Deferential reasoning includes appeals to authority, like someone famous said, or appeals to instruction, like I was taught this in school, or appeals to an overall worldview, These are often moral, social, political, or religious perspectives. The key is to start looking for evidential and deferential reasoning so we can start putting weights on those reasons. Evidential justifications are facts that we can interpret and verify, like a clinical study of 100 people, or those who took 40 milligrams of caffeine saw a 3% decrease in blood pressure, or similar studies were conducted in the 1980s. Deferential justifications, on the other hand, are conclusions or informed opinions, like a study from the University of Toronto in 2005, or coffee was found to reduce the risk of heart attack, or most farmers in Idaho agree. These aren't the only kinds of justifications and refutations. There are, for example, non-justifications like denials. The NASA photos were faked, or that's just a conspiracy. And there are subjective or emotional justifications like, it wouldn't be right if bad things happen to good people randomly, or that explanation just feels right. But we are talking critically about strength and weight of justification. Evidential and deferential are stronger types of justification. Deferential isn't bad. Deferring to others with specialization or topic knowledge is a valuable division of mental labor. Evidential isn't always final. Conclusions can be changed with new evidence, and some evidence is difficult to interpret without additional expertise. Thinking that evidence is final is a common misconception about the process and history of science. Critical thinking needs us to understand the roles evidence and deference play. Let's look back at our earlier examples. For the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine, there is justification on both sides. One side had 2 question studies involving 37 children. Additionally, it had personal anecdotal evidence from celebrities who weren't specialized in the field. These are strong, emotional, subjective justifications. The other side has 12 years of long-term research studies involving numerous scientific and medical agencies, over 500 children, and has been critically reviewed by experts in the field. This is strong evidential and deferential justification. In doing research for this video, I would often follow several links from the first few pages looking for results that included citations and references at the bottom of the page. Citations and references are a kind of deference that we can use to build confidence in the material that we're looking at. Take a look at the bottom of Wikipedia page and see what references look like. Evaluating social influence can be as simple as reflecting on our own opinions and asking, why is my opinion this way? What is important to me that might not be important to my social group? Social influence can be seen like deference, but is often only subjective or emotional. I was looking at a scientific calculator app and found one with 4.7 out of 5 star rating, 100,000 plus downloads, and editor's choice. Each of these could be seen as deferential justification. The problem is that it contained ads and in-app purchases. As an educator, this means that it didn't meet my needs, even though I often respect the editor's choices. I have specific evidence that outweighs strong deference in this example. When I was looking at reviews of the exercise bench, I had similar constraints. I'm 6'4" and would often skip over beaming reviews until I found a reviewer who mentioned their height with respect to the exercise bench. Not all deference is equal, and finding perspectives that speak to your specific needs and giving them more weight is part of rebalancing critical thinking. This video is my interpretation of the evidence and conclusions from a number of sources. It also contains my biases and is informed by my perspectives. If you're interested in how those perspectives were formed, there's a link in the description to the academic source document that informs this video with a list of references at the end. You can also check out the links to other videos that I've mentioned. They're all great. There's also a link to a summary slideshow of the points made in this video. Please feel free to leave comments and questions below the video. I've also enabled comments on the slideshow and the source document. Thanks again for watching, and happy critical thinking!